Hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to the session. Now we are going to discuss about water pollution. So in the last video, we discussed about water pollution. What are the various sources of water pollution? What happens when domestic sewage is released into freshwater bodies? So when domestic sewage is released into freshwater bodies, the physical properties and chemical properties of water will undergo changes. And these changes will not allow the growth of any kind of aquatic organisms. And that is how the ecosystem is completely damaged, right? So what are the major issues when we talk about water pollution? The major types of things: one is domestic wastewaters, industrial wastewaters, etc., and thermal wastewaters, etc. So domestic wastewaters majorly contain organic material which can be biodegradable by the microbes, heterotrophic microbes. And these microbes, during their uh, biodegradation or decomposition process, what they actually do is they utilize lot of oxygen. And as a result, the water body becomes um, deficient of oxygen. And when water body becomes deficient of oxygen, the aquatic organisms will suffer, they suffocate and they die. This is what will happen. So the domestic wastewaters largely contains organic matter which is biodegradable. If this domestic wastewater should be released, it cannot be directly released into water. It should be first treated in a sewage treatment plant. And only then it should be released into the freshwater bodies. So if it is not treated, if it is directly released into a freshwater body, the river or lake, its organic content will increase. As a result, its biological oxygen demand will increase and the dissolved oxygen will decrease. And due to the deficiency of oxygen, the aquatic life will suffocate and will die. So these are the outcomes, or these are the effects that takes place when domestic sewage water is directly released into the freshwater body, right? So we have discussed about different technical terms like dissolved oxygen, biological oxygen demand. Uh, we discussed about so many technicalities related to that. And now the next topic is eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Eutrophication is the natural aging of a lake is called as eutrophication. What is this aging of lake? It sounds weird, right? But still, a lake, the process in which right from the formation of a lake, you know, a lake or any water body is formed due to the depression, the low lying area on a given plain or somewhere will collect water, and that is how a surface water body is formed. Once the surface water body is formed, freshly formed surface water body's properties will be different from a water body who has been aged. That means gradually the water body becomes aged, and as a result its physical and chemical properties will undergo changes. And this process of change that takes place from the formation of a water body up to its conversion into a land is called as aging process. And aging of water body is a natural process that takes place. And aging of a lake or any water body is called as eutrophication, right? We'll talk about eutrophication and what kind of impact, what kind of things take place due to man-made eutrophication. So the definition goes like this. Eutrophication, otherwise called as hypertrophication. So during this hypertrophication, the lake, it is nothing but the natural aging of a lake due to nutrient enrichment. Eutrophication का definition ध्यान से सुनना. It is the natural aging of a lake due to nutrient enrichment in a water body. To understand this natural aging process, let us begin with the newly formed lake. A newly formed lake is deeper, it is colder, it is clearer waters, it contains clearer waters, and it has very less amount of organic matter, and that is the reason it cannot support more number of living forms. So we imagine here there is a freshly formed pond or a lake, and this fresh young lake is the deepest. It has very cold waters. The water is very clear, means it has less number of impurities, and the organic content it contains is also very, very low, and that is the reason it doesn't support more number of living forms. We cannot say there are zero living forms, but we can't say that living forms are more in number. With time, as the years pass, what happens? The streams keep draining water into the lakes. So how a lake will be formed? Because small water bodies, water streams will come and they pour in all the water into this deep depression called as lake. So with time, what happens? As the streams drain the water into this lake, it introduces nutrients like nitrates and phosphates. So what is the importance of nitrates and phosphates? We know that nitrates and phosphates are the nutrients that encourage the growth of plants and algae. And they are in natural conditions, these nutrients are very less in numbers. They don't allow they limit the growth of any plant or algae. But what happens as the lake ages, its nitrates and the phosphate content will increase. This encourages the growth of all aquatic organisms. Now the aquatic organisms, because they are getting a lot of carbon, nitrate and phosphate, they find encouraging to growth. So they start growing well, and that is how over a long period of time, the lake's fertility increases, means it can support more number of living forms. It can support more varieties of living forms because it has become nutrient rich now. And that is how the plant and animal life burgeons, means flourishes. So when you started with the newly formed lake, the environmental conditions, the physical and chemical conditions of the lake are not so suitable, not so favorable for the living forms. And so very little life forms is seen, very less number of living forms are seen. But with the time, as the nutrients are being added from time to time, lake's fertility has increased, and that is how more varieties of plants and animals are able to grow in the lake, aquatic beings, that is called as they're able to flourish well. Now what happens to these organisms after their death? All the aquatic organisms who are flourishing well in the aquatic system, in the lake, after their death, they just sink to the bottom of the lake. Once they sink to the bottom of the lake, they become a source of organic matter. They decompose very slowly because at the bottom of the lake, oxygen will be very less. Anaerobic conditions, more or less, you will find there. For that reason, they start decomposing, but the rate at which they decompose is very low. And that is the reason they become a source of organic matter. They keep releasing the organic matter at a very slow rate. As a result, due to deposition of organic matter from time to time. That means, see, you have two different things. One, from the lake basin, from the sides, sand and silt keeps depositing from time to time. And from the other side, the dead living organisms, dry leaves, and so much of organic matter keeps settling down in the bottom. And that is how the debris increases and the depth of the lake will decrease. Now the lake has become shallower. With the decrease in the depth, the temperatures of lake will also undergo changes. They become much warmer. Due to this, the cold water organisms can be replaced by warm water organisms. And after a while, what happens is as the lake has become shallower and shallower. Initially, it was like a deep depression, like a deep trench, but now it became shallow like this. As it has become shallower, marsh plants starts growing, and they fill the lake basin of the lake. Marshy plants. So when you travel by train, many a times you come across a water body in which you have so many plants growing. Those are marshy plants. So these marshy plants, eventually the lake is filled with large masses of floating plants. So initially the lake has some submerged plants, that's all. But later marshy plants have taken over the lake, and the lake became very shallow and shallower. And eventually what happened? The large masses of floating plants started growing, and you can see more number of plants and less now amount of water in that. And finally the lake one day is converted into a land. So these are the stages in which the lake ages. Okay, so it is the natural aging. This process is called as eutrophication. Eutrophication or hypertrophication. Hypertrophication is nothing but natural aging process of a lake due to enrichment of nutrients over a period of time. So as you have seen here, a freshly formed young lake has it is deeper, it has colder waters, it has very little amount of organic matter, it cannot exactly support life forms. But over a period of time, due to the accumulation of nutrients like nitrates and phosphates and other organic matter, the lake becomes more fertile, and it provides more conducive environment for the growth of plants and animals, and that is how different varieties of aquatic plants and animals start flourishing well in that aquatic body, the lake here. Once the organisms keep dying, they reach to the bed of the lake, and that is how they keep adding more organic matter to the lake. And as the organic content is increasing, as the sand and silt from the sides of the lake are depositing, the lake becomes shallower and shallower and shallower. And the water becomes much warmer. Once the lake has become shallower and the water becomes warmer, the kind of organisms that are surviving in that water body will change. Initially, it started off with cold dwelling organisms or colder aquatic beings, and they will be replaced by warm beings. That is because aquatic organisms cannot tolerate, they have a very narrow tolerance for temperatures. And once the water has become warmer and other changes has taken place, slowly marsh plants start growing. And these marsh plants will fill the lake, and that is how the lake slowly loses its identity. And slowly it is replaced. These marshy plants along with free floating plants will grow, like Pistia, Eichhornia and other plants. And once the free floaters are seen, that lake is almost towards the end of its aging process, and ultimately one fine day the lake is converted into a land. All these changes takes place in every water body, but the rate at which these changes happen is very, very slow. The eutrophication process depends on so many factors. One is climate, second one is size of the lake, and other factors also influence. As a result, aging of lake can happen within hundreds or thousands of years. So you must be knowing about certain lakes whose age is almost 200, 300 or 500 years also. So the aging process doesn't simply happen like that. It takes hundreds and thousands of years. Well, this is fine. Why are we discussing about it here? It is because of the man-made activities. Once we started adding sewage or organic matter rich waste waters into these lakes, the rate of eutrophication has increased. It has increased, the accelerated, and such eutrophication is called as cultured eutrophication or accelerated eutrophication. So during this accelerated eutrophication, what happens is we are adding the nutrients, and as a result, within tens of years only, the aging process is happening. So if you can have a look at this natural eutrophication process, you can see here, this is the lake, newly formed lake, with most of it is deep, and it has very less amount of sand and silt, no organic content. Aging process has started off. It has become shallower, shallower and shallower. Marsh, it has become into a marsh and swamp. So more mud kind you have, marshy land this is. And then slowly it became into a dry land completely, right? So these are the 4 stages of natural eutrophication. So what are the consequences of eutrophication? Consequences of eutrophication is the water body gets converted into a land, developmental of algal blooms. So because of nutrient enrichment, slowly there is excessive growth of algae. Excessive growth of algae will impart, what happens if there is excessive growth of algae? It gives a distinct color to the water body, and it will deteriorate the quality, fish kill, everything. What all the things happen for algal blooms, the same thing will happen. But the natural aging process is so very slow. But due to human activities, the rate of eutrophication has been accelerated, and we are calling it as cultured eutrophication. Let us see what happens in cultured eutrophication. Look at this cartoon where a scuba diving person has face off with a fish also. Because this fish is living in polluted waters, it is also wearing some oxygen mask because there is depletion of oxygen. Okay. Cultured or accelerated eutrophication. That means due to man-made activities, the rate of aging of lake has been accelerated, and the lake is choked to death within 10, 20 or 50 years itself. Addition of effluents from domestic and industrial sources rapidly accelerate the aging process. Domestic wastes rich in organic matter are readily biodegradable. The inorganic minerals like nitrates and phosphates are added by agricultural runoff. So here we should know that whenever domestic waste or industrial effluents are being added to a lake or any water body, domestic waste is highly rich in organic matter, carbon rich material, which is degradable. And water that is carried away from agricultural fields called as agricultural runoff. This water is rich with inorganic minerals, especially nitrates and phosphates. We know that nitrates and phosphates are the prime nutrients that will that will act as a plant nutrients, right? So what happens due to the presence of large amounts of nitrates, phosphates and organic matter, there is excessive growth of algae that leads to algal blooms. Algal blooms ki wajah se what will happen? The dissolved oxygen in the water body is depleted. When the dissolved oxygen has dropped, naturally the aquatic life will suffer and it is choked to death. Apart from this, due to accumulation, all these dead aquatic organisms, they start decomposing anaerobically, and that gives an unpleasant odor, and a kind of scum is formed, green colored scum is formed, and you can easily identify a eutrophicated water body very easily. And due to the inflow of toxic compounds, the fish will be killed. Large scale fish mortality takes place in a eutrophicated lake. Decomposition of dead fish will add to odor further and DO depletion. So these are all cascade of events happening. There is release of domestic wastewater, there is release of agricultural runoff, because of which the organic content and the inorganic nitrates and phosphates increased, and now the lake has become nutrient enriched, and this encouraged the formation of algal blooms. Algal blooms will further deplete the oxygen, and they create unsightly, unpleasant look as well as they emit lot of bad odors. And due to accumulation of toxins, all the fish will be killed. And decomposition of dead fish will further add to the bad odors. And this will further lead to choking of the lake. This is accelerated eutrophication. This is because of man-made activity. And as a result, the aging process of lake can just finish off within 50 or 100 years. This is how eutrophicated lake looks like. Now the next one is thermal pollution. So thermal power plants and other industries who generate hot water. This hot water should not be directly released into water bodies. It should be first cooled and then it should be released into the water body. But in general, what happens is the hot water that is released from thermal power plants and other industries, as it is being released into the water bodies. As a result, the colder water bodies will become warmer. Aquatic flora and fauna are highly affected. They are highly sensitive. They are stenothermal. Stenothermal means they can tolerate only a narrow range of temperature. For example, if the water body is at 25 degrees, the average temperature is at 22 degrees to 25 degrees, your organism can survive only in that temperature. If there is a increase in the temperature up to 5 degrees, means 25 is a 30. And if there is decrease of temperature from 22 to 15, they may not be able to survive. They cannot resist high range of temperatures. So they are called as stenothermal. Aquatic flora and fauna can tolerate a narrow temperature range. They are called as stenothermal. As a result, due to the temperature fluctuation, it leads to reduction in the spawning and hatching of eggs. Means it takes its toll on the reproductive behavior, and the rate of reproduction will be dropped. And with the increase in temperature, solubility of the salts will also increase. Next, in extremely colder areas, what will happen if warm water is released in extremely colder areas? It will enhance the growth of plants and fish, but they will displace the indigenous variety, the native varieties that are growing there. So here there are two cases that are explained. When warm waters are released into water bodies, if it is a normal water body, the aquatic flora and fauna are affected, their reproductive behavior is affected, and the rate at which they reproduce will come down. And the second thing is, if this hot water is released in extremely colder areas like a frozen lake, it will enhance the growth of plants and fish to an extent. But these plants and fish, they grow at the cost of the native varieties that were growing in freezing temperatures. Means when warm water released into extremely colder areas, they enhance the growth of plants and fish. But these plants and fish are not the native varieties that were existing in the previous conditions. These are the two cases which you need to understand. Next one is marine pollution. After domestic pollution and industrial pollution, it is marine pollution. Thermal pollution, it is marine pollution. Marine pollution में oil slicks from the ships. So ships are major route of transport. Water is the major route of transport for oils. So ships will release lot of oil into the marine waters. And when there is leakage of oil, this oil will form very thick layer on the surface of water. And this does not allow exchange of gases. As a result, the aquatic life in that particular area will suffocate and it will die. Increased BOD of the soaked feathers of marine birds, disturbance in the buoyancy. So by chance, if a bird was trying to get into this oily surface of water, all the oil will stick to the bird's feathers, and most of the marine birds, the oil will stay back on their wings and it will not let them fly any further. So you can see here marine birds who were dipped themselves in the water bodies which are having lot of oily layers, they will not be able to fly because their buoyancy is affected, and perhaps, who knows, this must be their last flight. So badly the marine birds are affected due to oil slicks. Now, another important waste is industrial waste. So we already discussed that industrial wastes contain a variety of materials, so many organic compounds and heavy metals. Many industries are located on the banks of rivers. They release effluents into rivers without proper treatment. They contain a variety of compounds, chemicals like alkalis, acids, phenols, petrochemicals, organic and inorganic waste, heavy metals. What happens when this industrial effluent is released into rivers without proper treatment? One is it leads to biomagnification. Second one, it leads to accumulation of heavy metals in the water bodies and the ecosystems. Let us see what is biomagnification. Biomagnification is nothing but the increase in the concentration of a given chemical with the increase in the trophic levels. The definition of biomagnification is increase in the concentration of a toxic substance in aquatic food chains with the increase in the trophic level. Okay. So let us see how it takes place. We'll take the example of DDT. What is DDT? DDT was once upon a time used as it is used as an insecticide. And this DDT, from the agricultural runoff, it reaches to water bodies. When it reaches the water bodies, the concentration of DDT was 0.003 parts per million. Means when DDT reaches the water bodies from the agricultural runoff, its concentration is very, very, very low. It is just 0.003 parts per million. And those living organisms, the zooplanktons living by drinking the water, and because they are constantly drinking this water, once it enters their body, when the DDT enters the body of the zoo system of zooplanktons, it cannot be metabolized or it cannot be excreted. It can neither be metabolized nor be excreted. So it gets accumulated in the body of the zooplankton. Slowly what happens? The concentration of DDT in the zooplanktons will increase. It is 0.04 parts per million. So you can see there is a factorial change here. The water is carrying 0.003 parts per million, but the zooplankton who survives by drinking this water and the organic content, once the DDT enters its body, the concentration of DDT is 0.04 parts per million. So here what is happening is, over a period of time, because they are drinking the same water, they are living on the same water, because the DDT cannot be metabolized, it cannot be even excreted. It is getting accumulated in the body, and that is how its concentration is increased. First level, as a primary, zooplankton is a primary consumer. And when small fish eat the zooplankton, and this small fish which is eating the zooplanktons on a regular basis from time to time, here the DDT gets accumulated and the concentration reaches to 0.5 parts, from 0.04 to 0.5 parts per million. So as the trophic level increases, this is the primary consumer. So secondary consumer this becomes. So small fish, the DDT concentration has increased. And in the next level, a large fish that predates on the small fish continuously, the concentration of DDT has increased from 0.5 to 2 parts per million. And by the time this large fish is eaten by a marine bird, the concentration of DDT in the marine bird reaches to 5 parts per million. So here there is increase in the concentration of DDT as it is moving through the trophic levels. At the lower trophic level, the concentration of DDT is very, very low. So it is not causing any harm. But by the time it reaches to the higher trophic level, the concentration of DDT became high enough. It um, inhibits or it interferes with the metabolism of calcium in birds, and it will lead to premature breakage of eggs, right? So what is biomagnification? Biomagnification is a phenomena in which certain toxins accumulate in the tissues over a period of time, and the increased concentration at each trophic level of the food chain, and it proves to be fatal. Example of biomagnification is mercury and DDT in aquatic ecosystems. So here we are taking the example of aquatic ecosystem. Remember, bioaccumulation. Biomagnification takes place due to bioaccumulation. So why that chemical is being accumulated in each trophic level? Because this chemical can be neither metabolized nor excreted, right? So this is how biomagnification takes place in food chains. Example is DDT accumulation in aquatic food chains. If you can see here, now, what are the effects of DDT? So if you observe carefully, when DDT is found in the lower trophic levels at a very low concentration, nothing happened to these organisms. But by the time it reached to birds, DDT does not allow the absorption of calcium. What is the effect of DDT on the birds? The DDT doesn't allow the absorption of calcium, and as a result, the eggshell formed in birds is quite thin. As a result, there is premature mortality of the young ones as it is released from the shell. That means once the DDT accumulates in the body of the birds, when its concentration is more and more, it interferes with calcium metabolism. It doesn't allow the absorption of calcium. And as a result, these birds, they lay eggs with a very thin shell. And the shell is so thin that it will break before the young one is completely matured. That means prematurely the egg will break, the shell will break because it is thinner. And this leads to increased mortality of fish-eating birds. Fish-eating birds, they have their own role to play in the ecosystem. They control the population of fish to an extent. And because of this DDT accumulation, which leads to high mortality of the undeveloped egg or underdeveloped egg will break, and as a result the fish eating bird population has sharply declined. This is one example. And another example of bioaccumulation is mercury. Heavy metal accumulation led to Minamata disease. It happened in Japan. Cadmium pollution leads to cadmium disease called Itai. And accumulation of nitrates leads to cyanosis, which is otherwise called as blue baby syndrome. This is about the biomagnification. So from the name itself, you should be able to understand. It is a magnification. It is the increase in the concentration of a chemical as the chemical is passing from one trophic level to next trophic level. So primary producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. So as the journey of this chemical starts from primary producer level, by the time it reaches to the top level in the food chain, its concentrations will be high enough to cause damage to that particular organism. And that is the reason we are calling it as biomagnification. Biomagnification largely happens due to bioaccumulation. Why the chemical is being accumulated? Because it can be neither metabolized nor excreted. Right? Examples of biomagnification in aquatic ecosystem is DDT and mercury. Right? In land ecosystem also you can find this biomagnification. Next one, control of water pollution. Water Pollution Act was given in the year 1974 in order to prevent and control the water pollution. So what measures we can take? Every effluent should be treated before it is released into the water bodies. Proper sanitization to control the spread of epidemic diseases. No domestic waters, sewage water should reach the water body without proper treatment. All the polluted water should be first sent to effluent treatment plants. There they should be treated and only then they should be released into the nearby water bodies. Thermal pollution can be avoided by using cooling towers, right? So these are the measures that are to be taken to control the water pollution. That's all for today. Thank you for your listening. So this is for you all. A great attitude becomes a great mood, which becomes a great day, which becomes a greater year, and which becomes a greater life. Okay. Have a good day. That's all for today.